It's a wild journey to get there, but
You start
essentially,
smoking weed.
yeah, it started with weed and pills and liquor and parties and stuff like that. But by the time I was 17, man, I was a full-blown addict. I was shooting up heroin, meth. Yeah, I was in a mental institution when I was 18 years old.
When you were growing up,
Yes.
you knew your parents were instilling right and wrong.
Absolutely.
Give me try to go back. I kind of was a little bit of a prodigal, but nothing
Sure.
to this point. What's kind of in your mind as you start to make some of those decisions? Like, this is wrong, but what is it you're looking for?
Absolutely.
What is it you want?
I was running as fast as I could get from God because I knew I had a call of God on my life to preach the gospel. I knew that from the time I was 12, 13 years old. And I heard the voice of the Lord in my dad's church calling me to preach the gospel. And I told the Lord then, no, I will not do it because, here's what I said, preachers are poor. And I want to be a professional basketball player, Lord. And I don't want to be poor. I want to be rich. I want to be famous. I want to play basketball. I want to travel the world. I don't want to live in Sacramento, Kentucky and preach the gospel. And so I'm not doing it. So I intentionally turned my back on Jesus. So I just ignored everything that he would say to me.
Totally believed in him.
Totally believed
but
in him, man.
I'm not doing this.
Yeah.
What was your relation with your dad like?
I mean, it deteriorated quite a bit because I just hurt my parents' heart so much, in the process of disobeying them and abusing drugs and
What was his
stealing
response to you throughout that whole time?
really awesome. He loved me the entire time. Sometimes it was tough love, but he loved me. I remember calling him one Wednesday afternoon from jail, and I said, Dad, I was arrested again. Can you please come pick me up? And he said, son, I'm about to preach. He said, I'm walking upstairs to preach. I can't come get you right now. And he said, I think you need to stay there for a little bit and just think about what's happening in your life. Because he knew it was a way to get me clean.
Yeah.
So I was arrested more times than I can count, Rich. I was shot at. All of my best friends at the time, a lot of them went to prison, a lot of them killed. My roommate actually was shot point blank range in the chest, died in the street, and I wasn't with him, thankfully, but that was my life prior to meeting Jesus.
What was all the violence due to?
Gang activity. You wouldn't think that being in West Kentucky, but there's a pretty strong drug route that comes between Memphis and Chicago, where I lived in Kentucky, and so I ran with a street gang.
So this starts beginning at 15, 16?
Yeah, that's when the addiction started, sort of evolved into that.
Can you tell me a little bit about addiction?
Sure, yeah, man. I mean, it's
the process of how you get there. I don't understand how someone starts shooting heroin.
Yeah, it just you sort of devolve into that because you kind of chase the high, right? So at first it was just weed and pills, and then it became, cocaine and heroin, and now they got fentanyl, but I never did that.
When was the first time you did heroin?
When I was 18 years old.
Were you scared attempting it?
Nope.
Was it something that you thought about before? I'm going to do this in 2 weeks, or I'm going to...
No. I never thought that I would do that. Yeah, but
Was there ever a time you're like, I'll never do that?
Oh, of course.
That kind of stuff. Even when you're partying, you're like, I'm never going to do heroin.
I'm never doing that.
So you saw heroin around you before you ever did it?
Yeah. So I was like, I'll get high or I'll drink, but I'll never do that. But eventually you just kind of chase the high and you get to a place. People call addiction a disease for a reason. And I was in that place, Rich.
Jeez.
I know what it's like to feel crazy. And that's one of the reasons why I was in the mental institution, because they were trying to get me clean. So I was in a state hospital, So I was there for a whole month. And then I spent quite a bit of time in jail, kind of in and out, different stints. I've been arrested a lot, So,
what were you usually getting arrested for?
all kinds of stuff, mostly violence and drugs. Yeah, so one of the times that I did get arrested, I had a warrant out for attempted murder because there was a violent altercation that took place between me and another guy. But thankfully, because of my dad, and because the guy, I guess, found it in his heart to testify the truth. It was actually, I was able to get out of that situation because what they were looking for me for was not true, but nonetheless, that was what my life was like prior to Jesus. That's why I tell you the story.
Yeah. When you're on heroin, you're doing drugs, do you still have the ability to be self-aware to say, I've got a real problem, or is it all denial? Are you still doing normal things? Were you still playing basketball, shooting heroin? Were you still
No, I think once you get to that point, I think most people do understand they have a problem, but they don't care. Because there's no way you could not be aware of the reality that you have a problem, because everything about you changes. Your physical appearance changes. The way that you think changes. I mean, my parents told me the 3 or 4 times that they saw me in 4 or 5 years, like when I would come around, like I would have a lot of like tremors and stuff, and then I would also forget what I was saying. And so those years of my life are really kind of blacked out. Like I do
Dear
remember
God.
certain things, but they're really kind of blacked out.
And like right now when I'm sitting here talking with you, like you're so sharp and you have such a great skill of communication and you're fast and you're witty. All of that kind of like personality set, that
Yeah.
was all in you way back then?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, I've always been a fun going guy. You know what I mean? Like I've always enjoyed being the life of the party and cutting up and having fun, and you know, I think some of that was still there, but it was definitely suppressed, man. A lot of darkness, bro. A lot of darkness. That's what a lot of people don't understand about drug usage, is there's a lot of demonic stuff embedded within that, man. And so I remember even doing all that stuff, Jesus never stopped chasing me. Jesus never stopped talking to me, Rich.